Sport Pharmacy. We're kicking butt. We're taking names. And today's topic with my co-host here, Jess Veal, the rock star, is going to be pre-workout nutrition.
Woo-hoo. Stuff I think that so many people bypass, overlook, just don't find the importance in or don't realize the importance of would be
Uh-huh.
my thoughts. What about you?
No, right there with you. And that's something working as a dietitian, specialized in sports nutrition, I hear all the time is like, I think so many people think about pre-workout as what am I eating the hour or 2 hours before an athletic event, or a maximum. They're only thinking like, what should I be eating the night before event?
Yeah, carb
And
loading
what,
parties, pizza
yeah,
parties, spaghetti
exactly.
parties.
Exactly. And so it's like I always tell people, I'm like, well, technically your pre-workout starts after your last workout.
Correct. That is one of my favorite sayings, and people look at you and go, "Huh?"
Yeah, the deer in headlights mode.
Yeah. Oh. Ooh.
For sure. So that is where I think is important to realize, especially for your sports where you're burning through. Let's say if you have you're a marathoner, you're a swimmer, those sports where you're burning through like 1,000 calories a workout, like, I always think about if I, especially, or people who are playing a multi-sports in a tournament. So think about soccer, I know you were a big volleyball player growing up. I'm sure you had weekends where you played multiple games over the
Oh,
course of a Saturday and Sunday.
yeah. And soccer, I played soccer too. So I remember, you'd have 2 or 3 games, or I feel like maybe even some of your multi-sport athletes, they're practicing like football and then they're going to private lessons for whatever the next sport is, or strength and conditioning plus, whatever your sport is then. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of examples of a lot of athletes burning tons of calories.
No, absolutely. And I
Yeah.
always tell people if you're going into, say, a weekend tournament, and if you're not fully filled before you get to that tournament,
Oh.
there's no way you're going to play catch up on the day of.
No.
No.
There's no way to do that. I feel like there's no way to do that. Your body can't process that much food, and you're
Mhm.
going to need to just be able to replenish what you burn that day. So thinking not just the Friday night before a Saturday tournament, but the whole week leading up to that tournament is going to be critical for athletes.
No, 1,000%.
Yeah.
And so when I'm thinking about pre-workout, from a food standpoint, one thing I always tell clients is realize everyone's body is going to react differently. I'm
Yes.
sure we've all met that person who could have the iron gut. They could have a pizza and whatever, and then 20 minutes later they jump on the track and they run a PR. They set the course record, right? You're gonna always
Yep.
have those freaks. And then you have the other people who, man, if they have a saltine cracker within 2 hours of going on the athletic field, it's a hot mess for them.
Correct.
And so that is the big thing that I always recommend is making sure that you're testing things before the actual event to see what foods and what drinks are going to respond best to your body leading up to an event there. So,
I think that's
um,
huge because
so
you
yeah,
don't test it on game day. Like test it weeks and weeks before under different conditions. And if you're for some of the tournaments you're traveling, I mean, I know you're traveling maybe different states or flying across country. So is it the humidity different? Is, people coming to Florida to play in the summer tournaments? It's hot. And so how is your body going to respond to being more dehydrated, to higher temperatures? Like you can't process the sugars as well. So do you need to be a little bit lighter, or I mean lighter carbs? Like there's so many different aspects to pre-workout nutrition.
no, for sure. And
Yeah.
so what I always tell people as kind of my general rule of thumbs is what is how do I want to say this? Have your last big meal about 2.5 to 3 hours before an event, and then that hour before the event, if you want to have more of be it liquid nutrition or something very light, that is kind of my general rule of thumbs on there. And the one thing I always remind people too is, let's say if you have a 6 a.m. practice, you have your morning swim lesson or whatever it is. Well, realistically, I'm not expecting anyone to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning so they can have their last big meal 3 hours before the
True.
race or
True.
the practice. So in those situations, I really put an emphasis on fueling up well the night before a practice session. That way your stores are relatively set before you're going into it.
I love that. That is, I feel like a lot of people look at, what am I going to eat that morning? But more importantly, what are you going to eat the night before so that when you wake up in the morning, you can just have like a simple carbohydrate in order to get through the practice. And then, as we'll dive into another episode, what can you do during practice to maintain those stores or help replenish what you lost?
No.
Yeah.
Perfect. And I always think too, okay, kind of your practical tips is leading up, say, the last hour before an event. Two of the things I always tell people is, if you're able to get, say, 15 to 30 grams of carbohydrates, I think that can be beneficial.
Yep.
I even think about too pre-workout hydration, making sure that you get some fluid in you so you're not running in already dehydrated. And the one things that I have found to be really effective, again, simple carbohydrates, be it a banana, be it orange slices, whatever works well. The two things that I find causes a lot of upset stomach is either if we're having dairy or fiber, simply
Sure.
because your dairy and your fiber digest pretty slowly. So again, simple carbohydrates, a banana, be it juice, be it something of that nature, raisins, saltines.
Yeah.
Those are usually my go-tos during that pre-workout from a food standpoint. How about on your end?
I was going to say, I feel like pre-workout, there's one thing I have to I have a lot of athletes that are trying to be like, the difference between like nutrition and sports nutrition, and trying to understand that sometimes in that pre-workout phase, in that 30 minutes before or during practice, it's okay to have processed or packaged foods like, like fruit gummies or, applesauce maybe that's packaged or stuff like that. Sometimes you can't always get, sometimes you're, especially those with more sensitive stomachs, may need that already broken down, simple carbohydrates in that time right before practice. And sometimes it's convenient because maybe you don't have the ability to carry fruits in school or whatever. I do a lot of high school athletes, so they're trying to find stuff that they can have in their backpack and easily access before practice. So sometimes looking at it as it's not bad if you have to go with packaged foods and that simple carbs for the goal of sports performance.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Simple is usually better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, I don't want a whole lot of fiber at that time period. I don't want there. So like you said, those simple fruit snacks actually work pretty dang well. Raisins
Pretzels.
work pretty well at that time.
Yeah.
Pretzels, saltines, absolutely.
All those. So yeah, no, I think that is probably the one thing that is the biggest like talking point to the athletes is, that it's okay to go away from like whole foods and use that. But that 30 minutes before of making sure that it is simple and not high fat, high protein, and high fiber. Like we want super simple. This is the time, it's usually the time like I have like gummy bears. I'm like, my splurge right before practice, right before a big thing. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
But
so
no,
I think that's super helpful, especially letting athletes realize the importance of thinking beyond that 30-minute time frame. Like you said, looking the days before and right after your current practice as the pre-workout for the next one. I feel like that's a really important point for people to kind of take away with too.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, I think we have some solid take home points coming from Miss Jen, sport pharmacist, myself, Sean Casey, sport dietitian. So if people have any questions, feel free to comment on these posts or reach out to us. We'd love to help you out here at Sport Pharmacy.
Perfect. Have a great day.
Bye now.